The boy had always been different, and everyone in his Manila neighborhood knew it. While other kids played outside, shouting and laughing in the dusty streets, he spent most of his time with an old mirror propped against a cracked wall. In that mirror, he wasn't just a skinny Filipino teenager, he was Elvis Presley reincarnated. He copied every move, every curl of the lip, every soft step, and every dramatic pause. The older boys laughed at him, calling him Elvis in a mocking tone. Some adults shook their heads, saying he was wasting his time on impossible dreams. But the boy didn't argue or complain. He let the music speak for him. When the world doubted him, he found comfort in the voice of a legend who had once been doubted too. His family didn't have much, but they supported him in every way they could. His mother would sit on a small plastic chair outside their home, listening as he practiced with a cheap karaoke mic that sometimes produced more static than sound. His father, who worked long hours, kept one treasured thing safe for him, an old leather jacket he had worn in his youth. It didn't fit perfectly, but it held stories, memories, and a little bit of magic. When the boy wore it, he felt stronger, braver, and somehow closer to the dream he chased. Still, deep inside, he carried a quiet fear. What if everyone was right? What if his voice was never enough? What if people always laughed? These thoughts haunted him at night, but every morning, he would rise again, stand in front of that mirror, and sing until his voice cracked. He believed that dreams don't choose where you're born, they choose the heart strong enough to carry them. That belief pushed him through the hardest days, leading him to a decision that would change his life forever. When he heard auditions for America's Got Talent were open, something inside him lit up. For the first time, his dream felt real, not just imagined. With trembling hands and a pounding heart, he told his parents he wanted to try. They didn't hesitate. His mother hugged him so tight he could feel her shaking. His father placed the leather jacket in his hands once more. And that's how the boy who once sang to a broken mirror found himself standing on the biggest stage in the world, ready to show everyone, including those who laughed, exactly who he was. The moment the boy walked onto the America's Got Talent stage, the atmosphere shifted. He wasn't loud, he wasn't flashy, and he didn't carry the confidence contestants usually tried to show. Instead, he stood there quietly, clutching the mic with both hands, his leather jacket slightly oversized and his shoes worn from years of practice on concrete streets. The audience wasn't sure what to make of him. A few people whispered, some chuckled at his Elvis-style outfit, and others looked confused. He looked so young, so fragile, almost out of place under the massive lights. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, studying the boy with that familiar expression, the mix of curiosity and doubt. He had seen thousands of performers, thousands of dreamers, and most of them tried too hard. But this kid, he looked like he had nothing left to lose. Simon raised an eyebrow, the smallest sign that he wasn't expecting much. Maybe another impersonator. Maybe just a sweet kid with a big dream. Nothing more. The boy swallowed hard, his throat dry. He could hear his heartbeat louder than the crowd. From where he stood, the judges' table felt miles away. Howie gave him a small smile, Heidi leaned in a bit, and Sophia crossed her hands in a way that looked supportive and skeptical at the same time. But it was Simon's stare that hit him the hardest. It wasn't mean, just honest. A stare that said, "Show me why you're here." Taking a shaky breath, he nodded. "Hello," he said softly. His voice trembled, almost lost in the vastness of the stage. Simon leaned closer to his mic. "What's your name?" the judge asked. The boy answered, trying to hide his nerves. The next question came quickly, "And why are you dressed like Elvis today?" The boy looked down for a moment before answering, "Because he inspired me. And I want to show you what his music means to me." His tone was sincere, not pretending, not overacting, just honest from the heart. Simon exhaled slowly, tapping his pen on the desk. The audience grew quiet, sensing something unexpected might happen. "All right then," Simon finally said, raising his eyebrow a bit higher. "Let's hear it." The boy's chest tightened. This was the moment he had been dreaming about for years. Everything he practiced in narrow alleys, everything he imagined in front of old mirrors, everything he believed about himself, it all came down to this single breath. And as he closed his eyes, preparing to sing, the entire room leaned in, waiting to see if this soft-spoken Filipino Elvis could truly surprise the world. The music began with a soft, familiar guitar line, and for a moment, the theater felt suspended in time. The boy stood perfectly still, eyes closed, holding the microphone as if it were the only thing keeping him grounded. Then, with a breath that shook his entire chest, he opened his mouth. What came out didn't just surprise the audience, it stunned them. A warm, powerful, unmistakably Elvis-like tone filled the room, so pure and so unexpected that gasps rippled through the crowd. It was the kind of voice people only hear once in a generation. Within the first 10 seconds, the judges' expressions changed completely. Mel B's eyes widened as she leaned forward, her hand instinctively rising to her mouth. Heidi whispered something to Sophia, unable to believe what she was hearing. Even the backstage crew froze, turning toward the stage with stunned faces as the sound traveled. But the biggest transformation of all came from Simon Cowell. Moments earlier, he had doubted this shy Filipino boy dressed in thrift store Elvis clothes. He had leaned back in his seat, skeptical, waiting for the audition to go wrong. Yet the moment the first note hit, Simon's head lifted, his eyes focused, and for the first time that night, he looked truly impressed. His expression softened into something rare, genuine admiration. It was as if the boy had reached across the entire room and gripped Simon's attention with nothing but his voice. The crowd felt it, too. A wave of excitement rushed through the theater, people turning to each other with disbelief, some shaking their heads like they couldn't trust their own ears. The boy wasn't mimicking Elvis, he was channeling something deeper, the soul, the pain, the nostalgia that made Elvis timeless. And he was doing it effortlessly. His voice carried a raw emotion that didn't just imitate a legend, it honored him. With every passing second, the room grew louder. Cheers began rising even before the boy hit the chorus. Phones lit up to record the moment. Crew members whispered, "We've got something special." The judges sat taller, the audience leaned in, and the boy's confidence bloomed with every note. In just 10 seconds, he had done the impossible. He turned skepticism into amazement, silence into cheers, and a simple audition into a moment that would soon be remembered as one of the greatest surprises in AGT history. The moment the music pushed into the second verse, something shifted inside the boy. It was as if all the years of singing on dusty Manila streets, all the practice sessions in front of broken mirrors, all the laughter he ignored from people who never believed in him, suddenly transformed into pure confidence. He felt the lights warming his skin, the crowd pressing forward with excitement, and he realized this was his moment. Not a borrowed dream, not an imitation, but the chance to show the world who he really was. Slowly, he took a step forward. Then another. The audience reacted instantly, cheering as if they already knew history was being written right in front of them. His voice grew stronger, more powerful, echoing through the massive AGT theater like a wave. But it wasn't just the voice that stunned them, it was the way he began to move. He let the rhythm take over, bringing out those iconic Elvis motions he had practiced since he was a child. A smooth slide of the feet, a playful tilt of the head, a bold swing of the hips. It was confident, controlled, and filled with a natural charisma that couldn't be taught. The judges leaned forward, completely unable to look away. Heidi grabbed Howie's arm, laughing and shouting in disbelief. Mel B kept shaking her head as if she couldn't accept what she was seeing. And Simon, who had started this audition with full skepticism, was now watching with a mix of shock and admiration. The boy wasn't trying to be Elvis anymore. He was performing as someone who had taken Elvis's spirit and blended it with his own heart, his own pain, his own fire. The camera zoomed in, catching every smile, every breath, every electrifying movement. The crowd screamed louder with every gesture he made. A Filipino teenager, once unsure and trembling, was now commanding the stage like a seasoned superstar. He filled every corner of the massive room with confidence, energy, and a presence so powerful that even the crew backstage paused to watch. For the first time in his life, the boy felt unstoppable. This wasn't just a performance, it was liberation. Every beat, every step, every note felt like a declaration, that he belonged here, that he was worthy, that dreams born in the smallest homes could still shine on the biggest stages. And as he delivered the final, soaring chorus, he knew one thing for sure, he wasn't just performing for the judges. He was performing for everyone back home who believed in him before the world did. As the final note floated into the air, the entire auditorium erupted into applause that felt like thunder rolling across the room. The boy stood there frozen, his chest rising and falling as he tried to steady his breath. For a moment, he couldn't believe what he had just done. All the fears that once held his voice down, they evaporated under the bright AGT lights. The crowd wasn't just cheering, they were celebrating him, a Filipino kid who dared to dream bigger than everyone expected. He looked around and felt tears burn behind his eyes. People were on their feet, waving, clapping, shouting his name even though they had just heard it for the first time. Somewhere in that sea of faces, he imagined his parents watching from a small TV back in Manila, their proud smiles glowing brighter than any studio spotlight. This wasn't just a performance, it was everything he had ever dreamed of finally unfolding in front of the world. The judges rose from their seats one by one. Melby clapped above her head, her expression full of disbelief and excitement. Heidi looked at him the way a teacher looks at a student who exceeded every expectation. Howie just kept nodding, smiling from ear to ear like he had discovered a rare talent. But the one he waited for, the one the world waited for, was Simon. Simon leaned forward, slowly, deliberately. His expression wasn't cold anymore, it was softened, almost proud. When he spoke, his voice was calm but carried more weight than the applause around them. "Young man," he said, "I didn't expect that. And I don't say this lightly, that was unbelievable." The boy's heart clenched. Hearing those words from the toughest judge in the world felt unreal, like waking up inside a dream he had replayed since childhood. He wanted to speak, to thank them, but his voice trembled with emotion. All he managed was a small smile, the kind that holds 1,000 stories behind it. He thought of the people who once laughed at him for loving Elvis, for singing in alleys, for dreaming too big. Today, on this grand stage, he proved that dreams aren't measured by where you come from, but by how deeply you believe in them. And in that moment, under the roaring applause and blinding lights, he realized something life-changing. He wasn't just a Filipino Elvis anymore. He was a boy who believed, and finally, the world believed in him too.